In your esteemed opinion, is it better to have a tightly focused game, zeroed in on its themes, mechanics, mood and world, or a more open toolkit game for sandboxing broader ideas?
I think it's a lot like politics, right? In that you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, right? You don't want to pass up on something that is better than what you're currently putting up with for the sake of your absolute ideal. A certain amount of pragmatism has to come in, right? And there's a contradiction at the heart of gaming in that D&D is quite a generic product. It can be used for all sorts of different games. It only has an implied world with certain facts about it within the core books. It doesn't set out to immediately present you with the Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or Dark Sun or whatever else. And all of those different game worlds basically run under the same rules. There's not a great difference mechanically between Planescape, Dark Sun and Forgotten Realms, right? It's mostly to do with the presentation, the associated fiction. Mechanically, it's largely much of a muchness, right? But truly generic systems don't do that well. GURPS is at this point largely a semi-forgotten footnote, despite having great supplements and so on. Generic games don't do that well, but semi-generic games do. I mean, Call of Cthulhu, for all that it is rooted in the mythos, you can use it to run investigative horror games of any type, really, and plenty of people do, because the Cthulhu mythos is in a lot of ways played out, I guess you could say. So it depends what you're going for. I mean, there are innumerable indie games that do at least something better than the big games. Better than Dungeons and Dragons, better than Call of Cthulhu, better than, insert your favourite somewhat big game here, Storyteller, whatever. There are indie games that do all kinds of things better than them. But it is really hard to find a game. So in some ways it's better that you can find at least a D&D game just about everywhere, even if it's not what you really want. Gaming is like pizza. Even bad pizza's pretty good, right? And that might give you access to a group that at some point might be willing to try something else. Of course, all the recent upheaval has made people more likely to try other games, but yeah, there. So from a practical standpoint, you might be better looking at semi-generic games that describe how to play in a genre rather than a very specific world and so on. You can find a small audience and a dedicated audience for a very tightly focused game where themes and rules and everything all work in concert to provide a great gaming experience. But you got to find people willing to play. So that's the dynamic. Speaking for myself, from a game design point of view, I think it's much better when you have a tightly focused game where the themes, the mood, the background, the story, the mechanics and so on all work together. Because all of those elements working together aids immersion, and it all makes internal sense. You don't have to crowbar or bend anything into your generic system. So it depends.